The year was 1848, deep in the humid heart of Louisiana, where the Hawa itself felt heavy with secrets. The plantation of Blackridge sat far from the main road, surrounded by endless cotton fields that stretched like a white ocean beneath the burning sun. To outsiders, it looked like any other southern estate. Grand house, rows of slave cabins, and a strict master who ruled with silence more than words. But among the enslaved logo there was a whisper, a strange, unsettling truth that no one dared speak loudly. It began with a child. Her name was Eliza. She was born on a stormy night, thunder shaking the zameen as if something unnatural had entered the world. The midwife, old Miriam, had delivered dozens of babies in her lifetime. But when she saw Eliza, her hands trembled. The baby had pale skin, bright blue eyes, and soft blonde hair. Miriam stepped back in shock. "This ain't right," she muttered under her breath. The mother, a dark-skinned woman named Ruth, looked terrified. Is she okay?" she asked, her voice shaking. Miriam hesitated. She alive? But this child, she gonna bring trouble. By morning, the news had spread across the cabins like wildfire. A slave baby, looking like the master's own blood, but no one said his name. Days turned into weeks, and instead of fading, the mystery grew deeper. Eliza wasn't the only one. Another child was born just 2 months later. Same blue eyes, same golden hair. Then another, and another. Each time the mothers were different. Each time the result was the same. The plantation workers began to avoid eye contact with the big house. Women stopped speaking at night, afraid even the walls might listen. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. But in a place where speaking truth could cost your life, silence became survival. One night, a young man named Caleb sat outside his cabin staring into the darkness. He had noticed something others were too afraid to admit. "All these children," he whispered to Miriam, who sat beside him. "They got the same eyes, same face, like they belonged to one man." Miriam didn't reply immediately. Her gaze stayed fixed on the Al-Kabir house standing in the distance, its windows glowing faintly in the night. Finally, she spoke in a low, warning tone. "Some truths ain't meant to be spoken, boy." Caleb clenched his fists, "But they real." Miriam turned to him sharply. "And real things can get you killed." A cold silence fell between them, because deep down they both knew this wasn't coincidence. This was a pattern, and patterns meant intention. Inside the plantation house, the master, Mr. Edward Blackridge, stood alone by the window watching the cabins from afar. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes, they lingered too long, as if he was watching something he owned, or something he had created. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling through the cotton fields like whispers of the past, and somewhere in the darkness a baby cried. Not just any baby, another one with blue eyes. By 1849, it was no longer a secret. 7 children had been born on Blackridge Plantation, each with blue eyes and blonde hair, each from different mothers. The resemblance was undeniable and terrifying. The enslaved men whispered in fear. They all looked like him. No one dared say the name of Master Edward Blackridge, but everyone knew. Inside the cabins, the women carried quiet pain. Some cried in silence. Others refused to speak at all. This wasn't coincidence anymore. It was something forced, something dark. But the fear didn't stop there. The children were different. They watched people too closely. They smiled at nothing, and sometimes they spoke about things no child should know. One day, little Eliza sat near the woods and whispered, "They're calling me." When asked who, she simply said, "The ones before." That night, old Miriam warned Caleb, "These children ain't normal. Something ain't right." Meanwhile, in the big house, a servant informed the master, "Another child of blue eyes." For the first time, Blackridge smiled. The plantation no longer felt like a place of al-Bashar. It felt like something else, something watching. After Eliza's strange words in the woods, old Miriam refused to leave the children alone. She began observing them closely, their movements, their silence, the way they looked at people. Not like children, like they understood too much. One evening, Miriam gathered Caleb again, her face pale with fear. "I seen things," she whispered. "What kind of things?" Caleb asked. Miriam hesitated, then spoke. "They don't sleep like normal children." That same night, Caleb decided to see for himself. Under the cover of darkness, he quietly moved between the cabins until he reached Ruth's door. Inside, Eliza lay on the bed, eyes closed. Still, too still, Caleb waited. Minutes passed. Then suddenly, her eyes opened. Wide blue, but she didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe. She just stared at the ceiling, as if listening to something far away. Caleb felt a chill crawl up his spine. Then slowly, Eliza smiled. The next day, something worse happened. One of the Ilatfal, Sarah's baby boy, was found standing outside alone at dawn. No footprints around him, no sign of how he got there. Just standing, facing the big house, smiling. Fear spread quickly now. Even the strongest men avoided the children. They ain't right, someone muttered. They ain't natural. But no one dared act, because deep down they all feared the same thing. The master knew, and he wasn't hiding it anymore. That evening, for the first time, Master Blackridge walked through the slave quarters without warning. His slow cudum echoed in the dirt as every person lowered their eyes. He stopped in front of Eliza. Ruth's heart pounded as she held her daughter close. Blackridge crouched slightly and looked into Eliza's eyes. For a moment, time itself felt frozen. Then, Eliza smiled at him. The same cold, knowing smile. Blackridge's lips curled upward in return. Remarkable, he whispered. Caleb saw it all. And in that moment, the truth became clear. Not just what the master had done, but what he was planning. These children weren't accidents. They were his creation, and whatever flowed in their blood, it wasn't just human. That night, the wind didn't just whisper. It howled, and across the plantation, every child with blue eyes woke up at the exact same time and looked toward the woods. The fear on Blackridge Plantation had turned into something heavier than silence. It had become expectation, like everyone was waiting for something terrible to finally reveal itself. It happened on a moonless night. No wind, no sound, just darkness stretching across the fields. Inside the cabins, the mothers slept lightly, their children beside them. But sometime deep in the night, something shifted. One by one, the blue-eyed children opened their eyes. At the same exact moment. No crying, no confusion, just silence. Then they sat up. Eliza was the first to stand. Her small bare feet touched the cold ground, but she didn't react. Her face was blank, her eyes distant. Outside, another door creaked open. Then another, and another. Across the plantation, every child with blonde hair and blue eyes stepped out into the darkness. Walking, slowly, together, Caleb woke to the faint sound of footsteps. At first he thought he was dreaming, but when he stepped outside, his blood ran cold. Children, 7 of them, walking in a line, heading toward the woods. Eliza, he called softly. No response. Not one of them looked back. He followed at a distance, heart pounding. The deeper they moved into the woods, the colder the air became. The trees stood unnaturally still, as if even nature itself was holding its breath. Then the children stopped, all at once. In a small clearing, Caleb hid behind a tree, barely daring to breathe. The children formed a circle, heads slightly tilted, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. And then they began to whisper, not in English, not in any language he had ever heard. Low, rhythmic, ancient, the sound made his chest tighten like something was pressing against his soul. Suddenly, a branch snapped behind him. Caleb turned quickly and froze. Master Blackridge stood there, watching, calm, unafraid, as if he had been expecting this moment all along. You shouldn't be here, Blackridge said quietly. Caleb stepped back, shaken. What is this? Blackridge's eyes moved toward the children. Progress. The whispers grew louder. The ground beneath the children seemed to tremble slightly, as if something beneath the earth was responding. Caleb's voice shook. They're just children. Blackridge looked at him again, this time with something colder in his expression. No, he said. They're not. In the center of the circle, Eliza slowly raised her head. Her glowing blue eyes locked onto Blackridge. Then she spoke. They hear you. Blackridge smiled faintly. I know. Caleb felt terror unlike anything before. This wasn't about cruelty anymore. This wasn't about power. This was something far worse. Something unnatural. The whispers stopped. Instantly, the forest fell silent again. Then all 7 children turned their heads toward Caleb. at the same time, and smiled. Caleb stood frozen as the children surrounded the clearing, their glowing blue eyes locked on him. Eliza stepped forward. "The woods chose," she said in a voice that no longer sounded human. Caleb shouted at Blackridge, "You did this!" The master replied coldly, "I gave them bodies, not what lives inside them." Suddenly the ground cracked open. A dark, cold force rose from beneath the earth. The children began whispering together, one voice, ancient and terrifying. "They're here," Eliza said. Then, silence. The ground closed. The whispers stopped. And in an instant, all the children vanished. Only Eliza remained. She looked at Blackridge and said, "You wanted a legacy. Now you have one." By morning, the plantation was empty. Everyone was gone. No trace, no sound, only abandoned cabins and fear left behind. Years later, people claimed that near those woods you could still hear children whispering in the dark, not lost, not afraid, but waiting,